As we gather here tonight, I think there's a lot of things that we have in common with these two organizations. And I'd just like to tell briefly the story of the United Mine Workers, if I might. Coal miners were once slaves in this country, living in company houses, in company towns, secured by company thugs and guards, and they were not paid by the hour. Coal miners were paid by whatever they loaded, and they were paid by the ton. They had to deal at the company store, had to purchase their tools from the company store. They had to buy their food from the company store. They had to live in the company house and pay the company to live in that company house. Their lives were completely controlled and dictated by the powerful coal company they worked for. 16-hour days loading coal. The company told the miners how much they mined. These were called check weighmen, paid by the company. And you did not load 2,000 pounds to get a ton. They were called company tons that required 2,500 pounds. And these check weighmen would lie about how much the miners were loading. They were cheated continuously with respect to how much coal they loaded. And on payday, after working 16 hours, miners would get nothing. Because when the company took out of their check the rent, the food, and the supplies, there was nothing left. When you are working for nothing and you're not permitted to leave the company town without permission, you are a slave. To try to find a way to live, children 7 years old of coal miners would go to work in the mines and or picking slate outside. Male children never received an education in those days because they had to support the family. And it was not until coal miners who were mostly immigrants, and if you can just in your mind picture this, coal miners who could not speak to one another because they spoke different languages, made their way to Columbus, Ohio, the poorest of the poor, the most uneducated workers imaginable, different cultures, different religions, different language, and got together in a meeting and formed the greatest union known to man, and they called that union the United Mine Workers of America. That would have been January 25th of 1890. And these immigrant miners, who were mostly uneducated, wrote a constitution. And the first thing they put in that constitution was, you cannot belong to the United Mine Workers in 1890 and participate in discrimination of any kind, of race, creed, color, national origin, because they understood one thing. That coal company that was killing the African-American miner was killing the Italian miner, the German miner, and every miner going underground. And if they didn't have solidarity and they didn't have unity, they could not prosper together. So they stood in solidarity and reached for one another, stood beside one another, fought beside one another, and won together. They say our union has a history of violence. 100,000 coal miners have been killed in this nation's mines. Another 100,000 have died from pneumoconiosis. You want to talk about violence? That is violence perpetrated by the corporations. The union fought that and fought for years for health and safety laws. They fought until we got the Wagner Act. And then John L. Lewis took that Wagner Act and he told the workers in this country, heed this call that comes from the hearts of men. Organize the unorganized. And he organized every coal mine in the United States. He did not stop there. He built the CIO. He built the auto workers, the rubber workers, the steel workers, the textile workers, and brought them under one umbrella. And he made a powerful force to stand up to the opposition. And if you want to know where the middle class came from, it came from the right to organize. The right to organize. Today, we find this debate amongst Democrats and Republicans. Let me tell you what the answer is to our economic woes. We don't need a Republican plan or a Democratic plan. We need a working class plan is what we need. This is all we need. You give us back the right to organize and stand together in solidarity and in unity, and we will cure this nation's economic woes. Because we'll go out of this room, and this is what we'll say. If you want higher wages, join a union. If you want more health care, join a union. If you want more health and safety, join a union. If you want more democracy in the workplace, join a union. If you want a safer workplace, join a union. If you want to eliminate poverty, join a union. If you want a better America, join a union. And if you just want to tell the boss, kiss my ass, join a union. There's an old labor song. By the way, if you notice, the union has been fighting for child labor protection since 1890. We've been fighting for a right to shop wherever we want to shop our entire history. All these things that you have fought for, you have had a partner that wasn't necessarily legitimized in a piece of paper. But we will leave here tonight and be a full-fledged partner with the National Consumers League because we need solidarity and we need partners wherever we can find them. And I want to leave you with one thought tonight. This is my belief. And this sounds a little militant, it sounds a little radical, but that's all right. Many people called Dr. King radical, among other things. People call Gandhi radical. I want to remind you, if you go to church, they call Jesus radical. Jesus was breaking the law when he was preaching. Moses was breaking the law when he suggested leading the children of Israel out of bondage. So sometimes we must be courageous enough to challenge authority. Just because somebody says, the law says you can't do that. Well, I want to suggest to you, if we had obeyed every law on the books, many African Americans would still be riding in the back of the bus. If we had obeyed, Rich, every injunction ever handed down against the United Mine Workers, we wouldn't have a health and retirement fund, we wouldn't have wages, and we wouldn't have health and safety, because somebody went and got an injunction to tell us to stop fighting for that. I suggest to you what this movement needs is a little more militancy. A little more militancy. Marching in the streets and standing in front of the corporate offices and being up on Capitol Hill, not asking and begging, but saying we demand these things. We're not coming up here begging. We put you in office, we take you out of office. You got there because of our hard work. I'm expressing some frustrations here. We've spent a lot of money, time, and effort and didn't get everything we'd like to have, okay? But I suggest to you this. That we need to be about the business of marching and demonstrating, because there's nothing wrong with it. Gandhi marched, and Jesus marched, and Moses marched, Dr. King marched, John L. Lewis marched. And I submit to you, that would bring us back together, and that would put labor's demands in the street. United we stand, divided we fall. A wrong to one is a wrong to all. God bless all of you.